More breaking news. President Trump giving instructions for retaliatory bombings in the event that he is assassinated by Iran. Trump told the New York Post there was no fresh assassination plot, but he added Tehran has wanted him dead for years. The Washington Post reports officials are now considering a permanent security fence outside the White House. And the Wall Street Journal reports intelligence on a new plot to kill Trump came exclusively from Israel.
It's also easy to see that Israel would want to sort of buck up Trump, make him more willing to take on Iran more strongly. Netanyahu has been, pushing for that tougher stance, a more hawkish approach to Iran for quite some time. But Israel certainly has that interest. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know exactly what that intel is.
And Peter Baker is back with me. Also joining us now, Michael McFaul, MS Now International Affairs analyst and former U.S. ambassador to Russia. Good to have you both here. So, Peter, have U.S. agencies matched Israel's intel on a new plot to kill President Trump?
I don't believe so. Not that I've heard at this point. I do think that there's obvious suspicion about, the emanation of this. But it is true that they have had intel in the past about Iran's intent to assassinate not just Trump, but others from his first-term administration who were involved in the killing of Soleimani, the major general, in 2000, early 2000. And the Biden administration had that intelligence and considered it to be viable and plausible and something to be concerned about. They took action as a result of that. So I think that it's certainly within the realm of possibility. And we saw, obviously, the president decide to take a different plane back from Ankara because the new plane that he was given by the Qataris didn't have the, apparently reportedly didn't have the security, apparatus that the traditional Air Force One has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to dig into that with you, Michael, because he literally swapped planes Wednesday, flying home from the NATO summit in Turkey, which, as you know, borders Iran. He flew out of Turkey on that old Air Force One, and it was during the latest round of U.S. bombings in Iran. He then flew home in the Qatari jet, saying that it was sent to military bases to show it off to soldiers. But could there be other scenarios, some of which Peter just mentioned, that may have warranted that level of precaution?
Well, first, I want to level set by saying I just think it is absolutely absurd that President Trump took this gift from another country and now is using it to fly around as the president of the United States of America. I think we've gotten so used to this administration, we forget about that. This is crazy. They're just doing this for free. They just want, because they love the United States of America so much. That we need to remember first. Secondly, it always seemed to me absurd that they would be able to refit this plane with all of the materials that you need to keep the president safe and to keep him in communication with the world. When I worked for President Obama, I flew on Air Force One all the time. When I hear references that it's old, well, yeah, it's old, but it works. It's also very comfortable for the president of the United States, by the way. If it's not comfortable enough for him, that's quite striking to me. Maybe not so much for staff and reporters, Peter, but it is comfortable for him. But it also is a flying headquarters for the president. And now we're seeing, I think, that we have figured out that this is not a safe plane. It's not equipped, capable enough to fly around the president of the United States. I wish we would have come to that determination before he flew to Ankara.
Good point there. So, Peter, today the Times, as you know, reports that 4 reporters on that story were subpoenaed by federal agents who showed up at their homes, ordering them to testify at a grand jury Wednesday, less than a week after this first article was published. How shocking is this? Why did they move so quickly?
Well, it should be shocking. This is obviously an outrageous effort to intimidate the press, the latest of many we've seen in the last year and a half. The idea of trying to punish reporters for reporting about, the administration's handling of this is definitely a shooting the messenger kind of situation. Our newspaper is going to fight this, obviously. We issued a statement on it. And I just, we'll see what the courts do about it. But, once again, instead of focusing on whether or not this plane was a good idea, as Ambassador McFaul said, whether or not this plane is equipped properly to carry a commander in chief, they're focusing instead on punishing the people who are raising the questions.
You agree with that, Michael, that indeed this is just an effort to suppress the press, or is there more to it? Could there be more to it?
Well, to the best of my knowledge so far, the reporting I've seen, there's not more to it. This is going after the press, is going after our First Amendment. We just celebrated 250 years of our country's Declaration of Independence. This is a violation of all the norms codified in that document. And if you're worried about leaks, you should go after your own people. You should find they're the ones that may have committed crimes. It is not a crime for the press to do their job. And that's what this president gets wrong all the time. And again, I worry we're becoming so immune, so used to these kinds of things. This should be this is an outrageous attack on our Constitution. And I'm glad we're talking about it, but more Americans need to talk about it, because the drip, drip, drip of this as we come up to our next electoral cycle, I think is really scary. I've seen this playbook before, studying other countries, including Russia. This is what autocrats do. This is not what American presidents should be doing.
Chilling, that for sure. So, Peter, we have Tom Nichols, who writes in The Atlantic, Iran, not Trump, is in control of this war, setting the terms of the conflict and routinely humiliating the American president. And here's a look at how Trump's tone has shifted on Iran lately. Let's watch this.
I found them to be more rational, very smart. We found them to be rational. We're dealing with people that I think are very rational people. I mean, they were nice to deal with. They were strong people, smart people. They're very smart people, very good negotiators, but so are we. Iran is being very nice. They're agreeing to everything that I want, and they have to. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people.
What changed, and do you think...
I got to know them. So I got to know them. And I'm not sure I want to make a deal with them. We can play games, but I'm not sure I want to make a deal. Let's just finish the job.
Well, there's a 180 and then some. So what accounts for this drastic change in rhetoric?
He got to know them. I mean, he didn't know them before. I mean, it's really hard to imagine the idea that somehow they were rational, nice people who wanted to do everything I want to do 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now suddenly they're scum, and he's discovered that they don't keep their word and that they can't be trusted. I think anybody who has dealt with Iran over the years would have told him that, of course, you know, these are tough characters who aren't going to necessarily tell you the truth and you can't trust, and they don't consider America to be their friend, and they were never nice people to begin with. But, you know, Trump personalizes these things all the time. When some foreign entity seems to go along with him, they're the greatest. When they stand up to him or defy him or refuse to do what he wants to do, they're scum. It's just you know, by tomorrow, if he sees some sort of progress he can claim in the negotiations, he'll say they're great again. We don't know, but it's a sign of where this war is right now, because what it seemed to indicate is if we can't make the easy part of this deal stick, we're never going to get to the hard part, right? This part of the deal, this memorandum of understanding, was really just about stopping the fighting so we could then have talks on the really tough issues like the nuclear program. Mm-hmm. And if you can't keep this 60-day ceasefire going for 60 days, it doesn't feel like we're going to get to the nub of it. And that leaves the president in a position where he has to make a decision on what he's willing to do militarily to try to force them to back down, and what he's willing to give up diplomatically, if that's the route he wants to take, that he hasn't already given up.
So, Ambassador, Wall Street Journal analysis concludes that the fight over the Strait of Hormuz boils down to one poorly worded clause in Trump's MOU. And Iranian hardliners used that to take control over the waterway as a key leverage point. Before he signed it, Trump had said that he was meticulous about adding specific words like acquire to the MOU. Did he miss something here?
Maybe. You know, it was a pretty short memorandum of understanding. But I want to underscore what we're talking about, to echo something Peter just said. What are they trying to achieve? They're trying to achieve the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Why was it closed? It was closed because of Trump's war against Iran. All of the other objectives that the president told us when he launched this war, they're not even on the table. So talking about eliminating their nuclear weapons program, talking about reducing to zero their missile production, cutting off terrorist support, liberating the people of Iran. Those were all the objectives of the war that the president articulated. And instead, we're talking about a new problem that his own war created. And I think that underscores what a disaster so far this war of choice has been for the president of the United States.
Speaking of war, Ambassador, here's what he said Wednesday about getting a deal to end Russia's war in Ukraine. Let's watch that.
That's all I've done. My whole life I made deals. That's, I guess, becoming president was making a deal, right? It was like a lot of little individual things. In the end, it's making a deal. And that's what I do. And I do it well, and I know when people want to make a deal.
So he has not been able to get an Iran deal. But what could be happening behind the scenes to bring Putin and Zelensky closer to an agreement?
You know, to the best of my knowledge, not much. I hope the president is focused. I hope his negotiators have a plan. Most certainly, President Zelensky has a plan. He wants to end the air wars, right? He wants to end the attacks on his civilians in return for ending attacks on military targets deep inside Russia. I think that's his game plan. And I hope it will end. There are just way too many people dying every single day on both sides, but especially these terrorist attacks inside Ukraine, including just in the last 24 hours. But I've seen no evidence whatsoever that Putin is interested in that deal. So I hope there's something there. But so far, the evidence doesn't support that hypothesis.
Okay. Ambassador Michael McFaul, it's always good to speak with you, my friend. And Peter Baker, double duty today. Thank you. Lucky me.